Welcome to Bloody Good Horror, covering the best and worst of the horror genre since Halloween 2007. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello everybody and welcome to another exciting episode of Bloody Good Horror. Tonight, we are here to discuss A Quiet Place, aka the movie where Jim from The Office made me repeatedly question my sexuality. My name's Eric. I'll be your host for this evening. Joining me tonight, first up, he comes from Chicago, the land of meats. Please welcome Joe to the show.
Shot-town, stand up.
That's right. He actually comes from upstate New York, but that's a whole other thing.
Yeah,
next
I
up,
live in the Chicago burbs,
next
so
up,
all around this is wrong.
On the show, coming to us from, as we decided today in Slack, the Dirty South, Hotlanta, Georgia. Please welcome Cece to the show.
Hello.
Next up from Indiana, please welcome Casey.
Hi.
And last up from Manhattan, New York, the business manager at bloodygoodhorror.com. His name is John Schnars.
Glad to be back, guys.
John, first of all, welcome back. You know how happy that makes me.
Yeah, I know.
Second
I like
of all,
that John is so comfortable. I didn't even bother taking a comb to his hair today. Good for him. Like he's got to the point where the live feed just doesn't even matter. That's awesome.
Joe, this is helmet hair. I rode the bike home. You know, it's.
Secondly,
it's
and
how it comes out.
more importantly, John, how did a crew neck worm its way into your dresser?
Listen, I'm mostly crew neck these days. You know what happened? I bought some V-necks and they were too big.
You know what's
and
funny?
It's weird.
I'm all V-neck these days.
Yes.
Chicago,
Oh, there we
look
go.
like you're 3 months behind on child support.
Oh Christ. We're exactly 12 days away from baby number 3. So.
Ooh.
John, I'm a little.
So soon.
I mean, that's good for you. That's great. I'm a little disturbed that you. I'm a little disturbed that you have switched to crew necks at the exact same moment that I have switched to V-necks. What's
It's
happening?
not really a switch. It's just it's a mix. The blend has changed.
I thought we were
essentially.
gonna be in like a cool guy club where our necks are exposed, and now I just feel like
I'm
an idiot.
sorry.
This
No, you look
this
great.
is getting sad.
You look
passionate. Look, I got one too, John. Look.
Eric, the real question is, when you're wearing your button-up shirt at work, do you feel more comfortable? You feel, you know?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, it's funny.
Hey.
You do things a certain way your whole life, and you never think about it. And then one day you look in the mirror and you're just like, with this undershirt under my dress shirt, I feel I look like a high schooler who had to go to a funeral or something. So I don't know. I feel classier in the V-neck.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true.
Do you know what I mean?
I work with a lot of people who don't wear the undershirt, and I'm just, I think that's barbaric.
Well, they don't sweat like normal people then, because
Look good, feel good.
I'd have to throw out my button-up shirts like once a week.
As a large man, that's like my biggest fear is sweaty pits. So
Yeah.
I wear nothing but the undershirt to work. So. that's not even a
I
joke.
feel like I'm learning so much.
Just big old brown nipple spots, you know, the whole thing.
Advertising, and you can just pretty much throw any sort of wardrobe out the window. It's great.
Oh, I'm
hey, Eric,
so jealous of that
question
show.
while you're on the topic of John.
Uh-oh.
Sure.
How many times since this weekend have you pictured him with Jim Halpert's beard?
Oh, listen, no. Let me correct you there.
I could never grow that beard even. if I wanted
Let me
to.
correct you there. Jim Halpert's beard made me forget about Schnars for a full 90 minutes.
Ooh.
Oh boy.
That's impressive.
Until I got home and later that night we watched I, Tonya, and then I started thinking about Schnars again.
Oh, we watched it this weekend too. What did you think?
So good.
My boy.
Yeah,
The
it's
only,
great.
I mean, the only thing that is like, I mean, everybody's great. Like the acting's incredible. The way all those people like slip into those characters, but your two main characters, like, there's this funny kind of thing stopping me from buying into it. They're both so good looking. Like buying them as stupid white trash, even when they try to dress them down, it just doesn't work. They're just two like beautiful people.
Eric, I think you, of anyone, should know, having grown up in upstate New York, that there's a lot of beautiful white trash in this world.
Not that beautiful though. That's like Rich White, you know. That's you know. But no, the movie's amazing. Allison
Are
Janney.
you talking about Allison Janney?
Allison Janney in particular is amazing. And the funny thing is, the low key thing you don't know going to that movie that you then learn is like Galuli's friend is the one that gets murdered worse than anyone. And that dude, they show the interviews, the real interviews with him in the credits. That guy is spot on. The pudgy guy with the mustache or whatever.
Yeah.
He is tough to look at just in general.
Oh my god.
Wait, who plays him? Now I just feel bad for the
I
actor.
don't no, but what I'm saying is the actor does so good at being that guy, and also the script just makes him look like a complete moron, and you think it's gotta be played up, and then in the credits they show the actual interview with him, and it's uncanny, it's unreal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't seen the movie. I'm definitely interested to watch it. It's been interesting that there's been like a little bit of a backlash to it insofar as like people feel like it has potentially like rehabilitated her in a way that she doesn't really deserve. You know?
Well,
Uh,
you know, it does engender some level of sympathy for her, but you still watch her make just terrible decisions.
Yeah. I agree. Like, I don't think it completely makes you feel 100% sympathetic for her. Like the choices she made, like she's continually going back to this guy. So you're like, well, what the fuck? Like you're kind of, you know what you're getting into.
But
So,
look, she's not like Hitler, right? Like I think it's
No.
okay to have a like look at this movie and feel
there's like a middle ground there somewhere.
that's exactly my point. Like I feel like it's okay to watch this movie and get some conflicted feelings about how you feel about her. You know, it's like, you know, it is what it is.
So wait,
like they've used that clip of Nancy Kerrigan like crying why, like it's like jokes for the last like 30 years. So it's not like anyone was viewing this as like a national tragedy. Like so, you know. And it's fucking ice skating. Who gives a shit? Fuck 'em all.
All right, now we've gotten to
It's
to
there's
the root of it.
there's some great little '90s like references in there too that I
It's
really enjoyed.
amazing.
I loved
Yeah,
him
I'll
in the
take a
basement. He's in the basement and he keeps trying to call Tanya Harding back because they're having a fight, and he keeps calling up to his friend's mom to redial the phone number for him because she keeps hanging up on him because he's got the phone cord all the way downstairs into his friend's room. It's so funny. It's good. It's good, John. You should check it out. I only have one complaint. I think that some of the figure skating CGIs, like the stuff of Nightmares,
Ooh, yeah.
like they put her head on like a figure skater's body, and it's like it's not necessarily that it's bad, but there's a really bizarre, uncanny valley like quality to it. It's like her face, you know, you'd expect motion blur when you're doing that, but her face is too clear, and she's like just got this smile on. It's really
It's like lit, like very bright. Like it looks uncomfortable.
like for a movie all about figure skating, you'd think they maybe would have nailed that part a little better, but what are you gonna do?
Do we want to talk about the Meg? Given that we're on a horror podcast.
The Meg. Listen, Tanya Harding's life is more horrific than anything in A Quiet Place.
Fair.
Yeah, no. So we just before the show we watched the Meg trailer. So the Meg is about a megalodon, Schnorrs, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And
the megalodon.
It's
it's
also about a big fish. The megalodon, known as Jason Statham, is also in this. So what do we think of this trailer? I think this trailer looks like Sharknado if you put like $100 million into it.
Yeah, that's what I feel like.
Which
Yeah,
is,
100%.
by the way, looks
It's
awesome.
150 million is the listed budget
Holy
according to
shit.
Google.
Jesus Christ!
Yes.
Like that is bonkers.
It
How
is
much?
really crazy. 150 with 6 more zeros. Yeah. So I'm very curious if this is basically like. So we loved Piranha back in the day, and then Piranha 3 Double D, I believe it was. This one is basically the opposite. So instead of like a bunch of little fish eating people, you've got literally like a gigantic fish. It's just unclear if it's going to be as funny. You know?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think Statham is a funny guy.
Well, he can be.
I mean, he's pretty dry, but I mean, I
This-
think he delivers when he needs to.
So this
Well, and
is-
you've
this
got
is,
Dwight Schrute here. Ryan.
Yeah, Rainn Wilson.
Rain.
This is
Rainn.
amazing. So, did you say Ryan?
Well, I thought it was RIAN.
According to
You
IMDb,
plebe.
the original release date for the first iteration of this movie was 2006.
I mean, I'm
Well-
glad they waited for the CGI to come along a little bit, but
Eli,
150 million.
It could have stayed in 2006 for me.
yeah, literally, if they
Come
had
on.
made this movie in 2000, if they had made this movie in 2006, it would have had like I Am Legend CGI.
Yeah.
That's
No, that's what I'm
okay.
saying.
I don't know
So-
that that's gonna make it that much better for me.
This
but
this
sure.
claims that this is based on the novel Meg, a novel of deep terror.
Oh,
Is that the Peter Benchley one?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Ben-
He's the
Bensley.
guy. He's the guy who writes books about ocean stuff, I guess.
Big
Mm.
ass sharks.
semen.
So that reminded me that there was a is it
Thanks,
the
John.
there's a the Beast.
Uh.
The Beast was a TV miniseries in 1996 that was
Yeah.
based on some Peter Benchley stuff, and it was about a giant like
Squid, wasn't it?
squid, a giant squid. Yeah.
Oh.
Very
Mhm.
cheesy and terrible, but I remember liking it as a kid.
Oh yeah, that was like an event.
It was
That
a
was
big
back when they did events.
because the big
Must-see
two
TV.
nighters.
well the
Yeah.
big thing too was like didn't Benchley write Jaws, right? Isn't that his thing?
Yeah.
So it was like from the creator of Jaws. That was when you still thought maybe
Maybe he
someone
didn't write Meg. I'm sorry.
No.
No.
Well, then this.
Tell
all
me, there's
this-
another guy writing semen books out there.
I think so.
Cece, you're not into this for real?
Battling semen.
Yeah.
Really?
Steve Alton. I had no idea.
I mean, I can appreciate that y'all are really loving it, but nah.
Don't
Okay.
don't listen.
Come
listen,
on,
Almond
Cece.
joint?
Cece, don't patronize
Listen,
me, okay?
August 10th, you are going to be lining up at
That's
the
what I'm
theater.
here for.
So is this
I mean,
based
I guess
on
I
our-
will because obviously we'll be watching it for the show, so I'll let you know how well it's received.
Like
There you
based on
go.
our new standards, Meg is going to be on the
In
theater
the
watch
year
list.
list.
Right. We must see in the theater. Yeah, exactly.
Truth or Dare, I assume, is not making that list, right?
No,
Or-
hell no. But
Oh,
but
boy.
like that could be something that I wouldn't mind doing on DVD just for the
Oh yeah, for sure.
for the
sure.
laughs, for the lulls,
Yeah.
you know.
Who wants to pay $10 to see it though?
The funny thing about this trailer, so it starts off and there's a character in one of those underwater tube things where you sort of like take undersea tours, and it just like Jaws 3, as bad as that movie is, basically scarred me as a kid, and like I honestly don't think I would ever set foot into one of those things. If it-
Oh, like to go to SeaWorld, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm there with you.
that is terrifying in Jaws 3 when the thing like cracks the glass.
Yep.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
all I can think about when I see those.
No, thank you.
I love those things. I'm super in on them, actually.
Oh, they are
They're
they
de-
are a lot of fun.
they-
Shh, don't tell.
They're death
There's
traps,
something
sharks.
about only being able to see out around there so far before everything
Yeah.
turns pitch black and not knowing what's out there in the pitch black like a giant the megalodon shark. It's scary.
Yeah, I'm with you, Casey. I don't
You
I
can
don't fuck with that.
you can take your life into your own hands, Schnars. I'm good.
When we're living on the bottom of the ocean after nuclear winter and all.
Also,
well, you and Jason Statham will be cozy.
Yeah.
Also, the story came out today that apparently they changed the name because everyone's favorite people, focus testers, thought that the name Meg made it just sound like a person's name.
Oh, Lord.
So they found if they put the in front of it, people like got the idea that maybe it was a monster movie.
They thought
Meg.
it was a documentary about Meg Ryan's career
Mm.
as
The
America's
Meg
sweetheart.
makes it sound like one of those like teen rom-coms, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, or like the gal's gonna lose the glasses and shake out her hair and go to
Do
the
they
prom.
still make those movies?
Ew, you're going with
Probably.
Meg?
Maybe that is the shark's journey. You don't know, dude.
Yeah.
I guess.
Easy A2, the Meg.
For anyone out there who's been like correcting us as we go along, so the Meg was written by Steve Alton.
There you
So
go.
there you go.
Story
Jojo,
of deep terror.
Jojo,
What's up, G?
what are we drinking tonight?
Beer guts.
When you do that, you sound like that Skittles commercial with the yodeling rabbit. That was like really terrifying.
I had more than one person send me that and tell me that rabbit sounds like me torturing someone.
It does, yeah.
I get that. A quiet place, or a quit place, as I like to call it on the Instagrams, is an adorable little jaunt of Jim from The Office and what's her name from
Emily Blunt.
Yeah, what is she in? Devil Wears Prada? Was she in that?
She was in The Devil Wears
Yes.
Prada. She was in that movie with Tom Cruise, the action movie. That was a big one
Yeah.
of hers. She was in The Girl on the Train that we reviewed last year.
Ah, right. So, real life couple, right? Beautiful lovers.
Yes. Married since
Um,
2010, I believe.
Lovers
So-
Embrace.
You know, it focuses on their journey and the seed growing inside her. And in honor of that, I picked a beer that I think would fit well with it. And it's called A Tiny Beautiful Something.
Wow,
From-
that could not have been creepier, Joe. Thank you.
Well, hey. From the fine folks up at Maine Beer Company, and they are in Freeport, Maine. I know I communicate with a few listeners that we have who are into beer and up in Maine, and they've talked about these guys being super good. And I've liked every beer I've had from them. A Tiny Beautiful Something is actually a pale ale that they kind of fooled around with the hops that are going in there. So pretty much they use this new strain, or not strain, but like this kind of new hybrid hop that just was released like maybe like 8 or 9 years ago. It's called El Dorado. Like it was like grown on a farm and was kind of the first of its kind. It has like a very sort of distinct like citrus orangey, like candied almost flavor to it. So when they first released this, they tried it with just that hop. Then they tried kind of blending it a bit, and now they've kind of settled on just using that hop because it does give it like a little bit of different flavor than your traditional like pale ale. Comes in at about, oh God, I don't have that on me. Oh, 5.5% alcohol, so not like super high, but you know, it's there. It's there for your enjoyment.
If ever in doubt, Joe, all you have to do is just say enough to drive. You're fine.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like in these Maine beer companies, interesting because their bottles, I don't know how much actually comes in it. Like it's somewhere in between like the 22-ounce bomber and your like typical bottle of beer. Like their packaging is actually really cool. Like it's pretty much just like white text on a label, or sorry, black text on like a white label. And they distribute pretty far, so you can usually find their stuff in your neck of the woods. I know I get it out here in the Midwest, and I saw it a lot when I was back on the East Coast. But everything they put out is great. If you can make it up to the brewery, I never have, unfortunately, but I've heard it's really, really good, and they put on a good show there for you. MaineBeerCompany.com is their website, and definitely check and like any of their beers out. Everything I've had is great and been really good. So give them a try if you can find it.
Love it.
And that's it. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Joe.
Mm.
All right, guys, let's take a quick break so that we can review A Quiet Place.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. From the prime time, bitch. Main feature.
Experiencing this thing lately where every time I go to segue like into the review, I can't remember the name of the movie. Like legitimately cannot remember it, and so I just start drawing the words out until I can. And I'm terrified. Like up until the last second, I'm scared that I'm not gonna get it. And sometimes I don't.
Isn't that just called baby brain?
I guess.
I was gonna say old man brain.
Dementia
but-
is
I
what
was
it
trying to
feels
give him
like.
the benefit of the doubt there.
one way or the other.
Feels
I
like,
can't wait till you have to do that for the Meg.
Yeah, well,
The
that's. I
Meg.
mean, that's pretty short though. You know, it's always these like A Quiet Place. Like how would I? You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, don't try to come up with excuses
Schnars,
now.
I bet you never forget stuff because you have a super brain.
Yeah, no.
Lots
Top
of
5 brain.
omega-3 fatty acids in your diet, right?
Oh. You
Yep,
take
yep.
pills, John? What kind of pills are you taking these days?
Balanced with a healthy dose of IPAs. So,
What's the morning regimen for vitamins with you?
just like yogurt, Joe. You know, I let the probiotics go to
Oh,
work.
poop yogurt.
Just
Mhm.
regular?
Some of that Jamie Curtis special.
Oh.
The problem with those is too small. It's not filling.
See,
me.
I have
need way more
I have
yogurt.
a bottle of liquid probiotics that I like.
Huh.
It's like
Just take
hard-
you take a nip.
It's
You
like
take a nip
straight
of it.
straight to the
Next
source.
week on
Look.
Poopcast.
Now, over
It's-
time, though, does your, like, because I found that the poop yogurt, like, eventually my body kind of got used to it and it didn't work as well. Like, do you have the,
You got to get to the good stuff, Joe. You got to get what I'm on. I'll send you a link.
I don't know. I just drink like a shit ton of coffee and it just,
That works. That also works. It's funny. It's funny when I stopped drinking coffee. That was like one of the things I missed the most because like it it keeps you on schedule, you know?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I'm,
I'm ready to move on.
I am just a compacted
Oh, my
mess if I miss my next joke.
Well, what else are you gonna do to pass your time when you're in a world that you can't
I-
make any noise?
I fear if like we run out for an entire weekend, I will die.
All this is to say, hey, John, please bring us the word of the day. That was my best segue in weeks.
Yeah, very good, very good. Today's word is cochlea. That's
Ooh.
Cochlea, the spiral cavity of the inner ear containing the organ of Corti, which produces nerve impulses in response to sound vibrations. Yeah, so cochlea, it comes to us originally from the Greek. I'm not gonna. We'll go with cochleas. Cochleas. And then it eventually migrates into the Latin, and the Latin word actually is just cochlea, which was the word for a snail shell or screw. So sometime around the mid 16th century, the word really just kind of goes into use for anything that is in that spiral shape. And then as they, learned about the human anatomy and whatnot.
I guess we'll have to talk about why that refers to this movie.
Yeah, I mean, so we can get into it. I mean, A Quiet Place, there's only 5 actors, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 actors, one of whom is this woman, Millicent Simmons, who's actually a deaf actress. And so there's like a pretty big plot point in the film that she basically has a cochlear implant, but because we're in this sort of post-apocalyptic universe, it's non-functioning. So...
And you mean like can't hear, not like 90s, like, oh, she's deaf.
was that something people said in the 90s?
Yeah, Def Comedy Jam.
Oh yeah, no, this is with an A.
Fresh Def.
So A Quiet Place, I mean, we sort of mentioned this, directed by John Krasinski, notably, or most famously known as Jim Halpert. This is his, I believe, 3rd feature. And this is certainly the first horror film he's directed. Interestingly produced by Michael Bay and Platinum Dunes,
which they don't surface until the movie ends, and you just go, "What?"
Yeah, no, it's in the opening credits.
I don't think I caught that.
Yeah, it's definitely and it's the OG Platinum Dunes thing in the intro.
I only think of one thing when I see Platinum Dunes' name, and that is Jason growing weed.
Yeah. So yeah, you've got the whole film centers on these 5 characters. It's a family. There is John Krasinski, obviously he plays Lee. I don't know if at any point I knew any of these characters' names, so it's going to be a little odd for us we can call them, brother, sister, and mother and father, but essentially you've got the mom and the dad. That's John Krasinski and Emily Blunt. Millicent Simmons is the sort of oldest sister, and then you have a I don't know, tween age brother. Maybe he's like 10 in the kind of like main action. The film actually opens with a sort of little opening sequence where we see them raiding a small town store, finding some medicine and just some other stuff that they want to take back to this sort of farm that they live on, and the way they introduce you to the world and to the action is essentially the fact that it's post-apocalyptic. There's no one else around. They're raiding the store. Sort of, they're also being incredibly quiet, and they make this like big deal about the fact that the youngest child, who at this point is probably, I believe he's 4, it wants this spaceship, but the spaceship has batteries in it, and the dad like flips out because obviously no one can make any noise. And we see them being like very quiet. They're all walking around in bare feet. And so they're walking back to their farm, and it turns out that the youngest son has not only taken the spaceship, or the daughter has kind of given him the spaceship to take, but he's also taken the batteries with him, puts the batteries in, makes the noise. And this is where we're sort of introduced to the fact that when you make noise in this world, there's like a mix of an alien and a cheetah that comes at you and just...
I mean, first of all, it's a Cloverfield monster. We can get to that later.
Yeah, we will. No,
that's
I
the biggest.
We will dig
the biggest swerve of the movie happens 5 minutes in, when in that scene from the trailer where you figure Jim's gonna save the kid, he totally does not, and that kid be dead.
Spoiler
No, I mean,
alert.
yeah, it's a pretty gripping opening to a film. I mean,
it's a bit of a gut punch for sure.
And so, yeah, I mean, and so the rest of the film then is essentially you have this family of four now living living on this farm. It's a pretty big farm. Turns out this was shot in upstate New York.
Really?
Yeah, Ulster County, not quite
Oh.
the capital region.
I know.
But
I mean, I'm familiar with that, so that seems close enough.
It's
yeah,
true.
I'll allow it.
I believe the town. Shit, where'd it go? I had it up. I'll find it later. In any event,
We'll wait.
Beacon is the town,
Mm.
which again, it's sort of like I don't know. It's about an hour and a half from New York City. So they're living on this farm. They're surviving, and they've essentially they live this like super quiet existence. I mean, super quiet in that they don't speak to each other. They do know American Sign Language, and they use that to communicate. And you can kind of assume that they probably would have learned it because of the daughter anyway, and it's actually become really valuable for them to know. And the main action of the film is really, in some ways, just about them surviving and trying to kind of make a life as a family. It does turn out that Emily Blunt is pregnant, and that's sort of like probably the first act reveal is that she is pregnant and pretty far along. The film kind of like skips ahead. You get sort of like you go from like day 72, I believe, is when the kind of initial action that we see takes place to like basically fast forward about a year.
They jump ahead
later.
after the kid's death, and you can tell because Jim's beard is now long.
Well, they also didn't they say like how many days it had been?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
It
I
starts
think
at
it
like
was 89 days and then like 472.
Yeah. yeah. It
Yeah,
was,
it's something like that. It's basically a year later, I think. But yeah, and so basically the rest of the film is them just in some ways making this life. We do see them struggling sort of as a family still with their grief over the loss of their son, but also the fact that they live in this fucked up post-apocalyptic alien inhabited world. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's not a ton else in terms of sort of plot that doesn't get into spoiler territory. So I don't know.
No,
Probably call it and
I
circle
think,
back.
You've taken 15 minutes, John. I think it's fine. if you-
All right.
I think that's pretty good. Hey, Joe, what'd you think of this?
I like this movie a lot. I from the trailers, and I think just word of what we'd kind of read. Like I was really looking forward to this. The wife actually went and saw this with me, which is rare for one of our movie releases. But I think 99% of that was based on her crush on John Krasinski, which I get it. Like I can't argue that. But no, I thought specifically like Emily Blunt and John Krasinski, I thought played off each other really well. Like, obviously they're a couple in real life, but like in the movie, you really kind of felt that love and like that tension of her being pregnant. Like specifically, like there's a scene where they're listening to a Walkman together, and you can tell like the look on their faces, like how nervous they are for each other that like this baby is coming and really could cause some issues, obviously. So like I thought they were just great. The kids I was like so on, like a little whiny for my taste, but I get it. You're constantly in fear that you're gonna get murdered, so yeah.
Wait, Joe, one of the children didn't even speak.
she signed a little obnoxiously.
No, they're a little, yeah, like a little emo, but actually like
Yeah.
in ways that make sense in the script. And
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Like I
I mean,
totally
kids are like that.
I'm being an idiot.
Kids are like that.
But no, I thought it was great. Like I thought, it's funny that all you keep hearing is like the first 15 minutes, like there's pretty much no noise, and it like really, it's such a weird movie watching, like especially in an audience experience, because like I'm sure you guys saw this too. Like 3 rows back, if someone takes like a sip of their soda, like you could hear the straw. Like it really made it like uber sensitive of any sort of noise going on. So overall, like I was a big fan of this.
CC.
Can I give a quick aside actually on the noise thing, because there's not going to be an appropriate time for this. So 10 minutes into this movie, after the kid has been killed and everyone is like completely dead silent, like probably 6 or 7 girls who must have been at like a birthday party walk into the theater very loud, like they have the like flashlight on their phone, they're trying to find their seat and all this. People are like already starting to groan, and then as they like walk in, the last girl is holding a like 6 balloon sort of like set of balloons.
What?
In the theater, people were losing it. It was
How is this a movie that you decide to go to for like a teenager's birthday party?
Well, I also don't understand how, if you're like working at this theater, do you let someone in with like 6 balloons? Like, just don't let them in the freaking theater. It's not like they were hiding them. I don't know. It was
Were
unbelievable.
people yelling? Like, did people
Oh
lose
yeah,
their shit?
no, yeah. Somebody basically like people were losing it, and then someone went outside, and the like usher came in and like basically took 2 of the girls out with the balloons, and then they like whatever.
Well,
came
it was
back.
a
Like-
consideration, right? Because like, so this movie made $50 million. There was my theater was like it was 1 p.m. on a Sunday, filled with normies, a lot of like older couples that seemed to be going together. I was sitting next to a dude, so like it's a movie where I don't think a character speaks out loud for the first 40 minutes of this movie potentially, and the guy next to me, first of all, he had the world's largest tub of popcorn I've ever seen. And he's just
Did he like
mowing.
bring one, or was it like one provided by the movie?
He's
theater?
just like, he is violating
My
this.
own things.
You know when you're eating popcorn like a slob and it's just like you're sticking your whole hand in your mouth and it's all like you can, and he's
Yes,
munching
what of it?
for the
There's no other way to do it.
for the entire
Yeah.
movie. But wait, so like, so if it was just that, I would have been fine because I'm in a movie theater and I understand that's going to happen. But on top of it, he went to this movie while undergoing what I can only describe as a persistent wet cough. And so
Oh,
and
boy.
so in between downing popcorn,
Christ.
he is hacking a lung up. Dude sounds like he had pneumonia. And then at one point, this is my favorite part. At one point, I get a text and like I turn my screen all the way down, I have it on mute or whatever. But if I get a text in the middle of the movie, like, it might be my wife, there might be something wrong. I have a kid, so like I will look at it quick. I looked at it. This guy gave me the most passive aggressive like look over ever, and I wanted to be like, bro, are you serious? At least my lungs are functioning. Okay.
You should have coughed in his face. You
I
should've-
know. Good
No, I
God.
should have just turned to him and been like, "Are you kidding me right now?"
All right, sorry, that was digression, Casey. I apologize.
But no, but I wanted to bring it up because like we had a lot of questions and people's feedback. Like I saw on Twitter about some people said,
Yeah.
"Oh, my theater was good," or "Oh, mine was bad." But
Yeah.
I feel like from the horror community, there's a lot of trepidation going into this movie because you want to be able to get into it and enjoy it. But of course, it's also popular, so it's like this kind of game of Russian roulette you're playing with your theater, basically.
And it's important to discuss because we have, especially in the horror community, we haven't really had a movie like this
So yeah, if you
since
have
the silent days.
so yeah, if you have the croup, maybe don't go to a movie.
At least a quiet one.
All right, Cece.
Ah.
Did you go already,
Oh,
Cece?
Oh no, I didn't know if you meant me or
No.
Casey.
No, John interrupted her.
So I was really looking forward to this, and I did watch a couple of trailers, and I was still really stoked about it. And I went on opening night in the suburbs, so it was a pretty packed theater. Everyone was on their best behavior, luckily. Even the teenagers who came in halfway through the movie, they were a little loud but sat down quietly. I was super, super happy that the scenes that we see in the trailer are kind of, knocked out at the beginning of the movie, and that the majority of the movie is, really, really tense. And I agree with Joe. Like, I think that both John and Emily's characters are really, really fleshed out, but I also really liked the daughter. I thought that she did an awesome job and really, I don't know, really intensified that emotion within the family. So I enjoyed it.
Casey?
I, in fact, loved this as well. I only watched the trailer once going into this, so I wanted to really save it, and it was very good. And you could hear a pin drop throughout most of the movie, and it made it great. There's a tweet floating around from that John Krasinski retweeted Stephen King talking about his movie and about what made Quiet Place so great is because it's quiet, the way it affected the cinematography and kind of made the world open up around it and stuff. And I'd read that just before going into the movie, so I was trying to kind of watch for that to see if I could pick up on what King was talking about. And he's right. There was some scenes just some shots in this movie because it was so quiet and you're not distracted. It just opens up, and there's even like the cinematography is fairly beautiful in parts. So it's really good all around, and I'm rather proud of myself because I am the type I TV shows and movies can definitely make me anxious, and I was worried about that going into this one, and I actually survived with fairly unscathed. So I'm fairly happy for that.
It's very butt clenchy.
Yes.
Yeah, very much so.
A lot of butts, a lot of clenching.
John Schnars.
Yeah, I mean, I love this as well. I was pretty excited. I've been paying a fair bit of attention to the trailers. I've probably seen 2 or 3 of them, and yeah, so I had high expectations. I actually didn't even know this was directed by John Krasinski, and when the final credits came up, I was literally just like, "What?" I mean, because I think to Casey's point, it's super well put together from when you think about sort of the blocking and tackling of doing a really tense, it's I think it's not an action driven film, but at the same time, like there's a fair bit of action in it. We've talked about a lot of different movies this year that are, I think, similar in some ways. It's a small movie in that there's only four characters essentially, but you still get so much out of it. I think you guys hit on it. I mean, the relationships, the family felt very natural. I think a lot of that's that John Krasinski and Emily Blunt are obviously really. I also didn't know they were married until afterwards. So
oh really?
I'm catching up on a lot of things.
Did you think they were dating?
Hollywood
Or you
gossip.
just didn't know they were together at all?
I was like, wow, they're both really good actors apparently. No,
John's
I mean,
like,
so,
wow,
yeah,
the chemistry is scintillating.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was just very believable, right? Like I mean, here's the thing. Like, I was thinking about this. We talk a lot about like who are movies made for, right? Like there's we've talked about it even in relationship to like Truth or Dare.
Who is
this
Phone?
movie that's this is like the opposite of a Truth or Dare. Like this is like a very adult film in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was also sitting next to two like pretty not like I don't want to say older, like they were like 50s probably, but they were like out on a date, and like it was like there was just I just
Go on.
I mean, like there were a lot of like older people in this film in a way that like is like pretty unusual for most of the movies we see.
I had the same experience.
Yeah, so I don't know. So that's like it's just really odd, and like to see this do as well as it did is awesome. I think that for me, if anything, like we can get into it. I think the only like criticism I have is like it borders on schmaltzy at times. I was like totally fine with it.
Here the moment though that we won't really like talk about it too much, but there's this moment with Krasinski towards the end where he like I think the one. It's like the moment with John Krasinski in this movie, and it's just like he crosses that line for a second.
Yeah.
And it's a little like
Yeah.
I actually funny then finding out that Michael Bay had something to do with this. Like I'm sure Michael Bay just was the money guy, right? But like it reminded me of one of the over the top moments in like Armageddon or some shit. I don't even think he made. I don't even know if he made. Wasn't that Joel Schumacher? But you get my point.
Yeah.
Well, the Aerosmith song didn't help with
Yeah,
that.
it's like you might as well have
yeah.
been playing an Aerosmith song in the background.
It's just
Michael
like,
Bay-
wait, did you feel bad before? Here, this is the moment where you really are supposed to feel bad, and then they lay it out.
I had read that originally, like this script was supposed to be Bad Boys 3, and then like they modified it slightly. It was supposed to be like a real weird turn for them.
No, I mean, we talked really quick, Eric. Like the other thing was like the pregnancy element. Like we've all been, for the most part, been down this road at this point. We've talked about it a lot on the show. Like my wife's about to have another baby. It was like really emotionally affecting me in weird ways.
Yeah.
I mean,
so I don't know. That was tough too. But again, like it's a really well done film, and it earns all of that sort of emotional stuff really well, I think.
Yeah,
we need to revisit the pregnancy thing because I had a pretty good like learning moment by the time I got to the end of this movie with how they handled all that. At least for me.
Casey, did you not know where babies came from until this
oh,
Yeah,
what do you
I
mean,
had
a
no
learning
idea.
moment?
No, there's throughout this whole movie, I'm watching it because they do a really good job of showing them setting up. And I'm sorry to jump in ahead of you, Eric. It just popped in my head, but they showed them working in the basement of this barn, setting things up and whatnot. And you see like a point where she pulls out like an oxygen tank and hooks up a hose and hooks up a little mask. And I'm watching it thinking, well, what the hell? And then as the movie's going on and she gets more and more pregnant, the dad in me is thinking, how the hell are they going to do a baby in this world where sound's going to kill everything, and then once everything happens, you see how everything is planned out and laid out, and it's like, oh shit.
Well, they
That's
showed that like box, like
yeah, the
up
box
front,
they're building is terrifying.
yeah.
Although
that.
maybe don't ask. So I loved this movie. I have a question about the box, but I want to say this first before I start sounding like an internet person. I love this movie. I think the triumph of this movie is the fact that almost no one speaks for literally the entire running time, and it is riveting. Like there isn't a single boring moment in this movie. Every moment is like full of tension and nervousness, and if it's not tense, it's like emotionally resonant. There is just like such an amazing parenting dynamic in this movie that's really emotional to watch. There are these great relationship things between the two of them, really just like these really laid bare human relationships and what happens when you're trying, these are people that are trying to live a normal life while in this not normal situation, right? And a lot of the fun of the movie is seeing the ways in which they've adapted to it and the ways in which in some ways they are living, they found some semblance of normalcy, right? Like you can, that's kind of an interesting thing is like, they don't have to hide in a house all the time. They walk around. As long as they're quiet, they can go out and basically do whatever they want.
Well,
and
I love the detail. They like painted the steps where they painted the spots
yes,
on the boards.
Yes,
like where they
but,
went
and this
creaking.
kind of leads to my later point, how would you figure out which boards are creaky without stepping on the creek and drawing the monsters to you?
Well, I think one creek is fine. It's more like if you were walking around creaking all the time, then you definitely
so
the ducks.
I mean, somebody on Twitter told me that because I came out of this and immediately was like, this is a Cloverfield movie. The monsters look exactly like Cloverfields.
Yeah,
they literally have the same, like Cloverfields have that weird ear thing and everything. Somebody on Twitter claims that they saw an article that said that this was pitched to the studio as a Cloverfield movie originally, and then at some point was divorced from that. But now that we know about the multiverses, man, you can't tell me that this is not a Cloverfield movie.
We had talked about this even when like the trailer came out. Like there was
Yeah.
that this was like a Cloverfield movie.
But it's funny because you don't see the monsters in the trailer, and then they show up in the movie. I'm like, oh, this is a Cloverfield.
I would argue that this is a Resident Evil movie, and those were the liquors or whatever you call them.
There is one thing I want to mention that like I just think that there is like a little loose piece of string hanging at the bottom of this movie, like an old sweater, right? And like the movie is so good, it's easy to buy into it and ignore it. But if you wander off and you pull on that string, there are just so many questions about the logistics of like the idea that they're running like a fully functional farm without making any noise is completely ridiculous. Or like, how did they make the baby box without hammering nails?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Gorilla Glue.
Eric, how dare you make me think about things like that?
No, and here's the thing.
I wouldn't worry about
dare
attaching
you
it
call
together.
Emily
I want
Blunt
to
a
know
baby
how
box?
they cut the wood.
You could have repurposed a box.
Right. How did you cut the wood? How did you cut the wood? That's another great question. And the thing is, like, what the movie does really smartly is it doesn't linger on that stuff because it's not what the movie's about, right? The movie is about these human relationships, and it's about tension and it's just a great simple scenario. They don't overthink it. I think that in the course of doing that, they do leave themselves open a little bit to nitpicking stuff. Like some a-hole is going to make a really lengthy like movie sins video about this, and I think it's a shame that might turn people off from the movie because like it's fantastic.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, like that's it's fair, and I do think there's like a ton of things like that you can pick at. At the end of the day, I would actually go so far as to say you mentioned this movie is it's while no one speaks, it's still really tight. It's only 90 minutes. I could have easily taken another 10-15 minutes in this movie if it meant that you got more of that stuff that you're talking about, because I thought it was handled so well.
Sure.
Some of it's most of it I would say is actually in the direction, right? In the way that they don't linger, that it's not sort of overly showy. It's just a bunch of little things that are stitched together that when you see it, you're like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. Like there's a truth in that, whether or not it's like really.
I do think too, like, and
know?
this is like really literally the only other real criticism I have, and it's not even like, it's fine. But I think that the John Krasinski character, oddly, is like the least well-rounded character in the whole movie. Like, I hate to use the word Pollyanna because I think that's kind of been co-opted in a gross way, but like, you know, he's kind of just an amazing, sexy dude who can build stuff and run a farm, and like he's the best parent and husband in the world. Like Emily Blunt is more well-rounded, I feel like.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that if you had sanded down some of those schmaltzier moments, I'm not sure I would have noticed it as much. But it's those moments when he's doing his you know, you complete me, like that kind of stuff. That it's
Well,
like
I
a
mean,
little
I think
much.
that he's supposed to be more of like, it's not. I mean, he's the antagonist with his family. Like, he's the one who's kind of creating all of this tension because he can't really get over the death of his son, or not necessarily get over, but, you know, start to like move past that. So it's really, you know, a microcosm, like you said, of this family learning to live with these new circumstances. And the mom and the son and the daughter are really trying to do that while he's kind of stuck in the past. So I think
Yeah.
I agree his character could use some more polishing, but I kind of liked that he's, you know, he's supposed to be this non-emotional person who can do physical things, but his unavailability emotionally is what's holding him back from surviving.
Yeah, and he's only lost. It's only been like years since he lost his son, so
Sure.
I could easily see that driving him into, like what Cece is saying, not able to move past it and come to terms with it, and driving him into he has to be even more protective of his family
Yeah.
and do even more
Do you
to
guys
keep him
think?
safe.
Do you guys think this was something I asked myself a lot during this movie? Was this their house, or did they end up at this house?
That's a good
I
question.
have
I
I
wondered
think it
that.
was
feelings.
their house because there was photos on the wall of
In
like
the-
them like
in-
as like babies
In
and
the
Oh,
like
right.
in the
Oh,
farmhouse
But didn't
part.
they stay like? Didn't they leave the actual house and they're like in the barn? Because like where we see
Well,
them,
Yeah, there was
The
there was
nursery area was like underneath the barn.
there was
Okay,
times
okay.
there were times though, because it's kind of a compound, right? Like
yeah,
there's the barn, which is where their like real quarters seem to be,
yeah.
and then there's the house. And yeah, like because there's a lot of running back and forth, and there were some times when I was like a little spatially confused.
well they
Well,
go
'cause, like-
back and he's standing, I think it's him or Emily Blunt is standing looking at the son's room.
Yeah.
So they were definitely staying in the house, but I think most of their daily activities took place in the barn.
Well, because I didn't think that the daughter was allowed to go in the house because she tried to go down and see her mom while she was in the like, you know, recording room, and her dad came and like snatched her up because he was afraid she was going to make a noise.
Well,
I think
he
it was
also
just the
didn't
basement.
Okay.
I think he didn't want her seeing what he was doing down there. Like, I don't want to spoil
Oh,
it.
gotcha.
It's not like he had like a porn den or something, but like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
I
Jesus Christ.
He
So
might
let's-
have.
No Uncle Touchy
could've.
puzzle basement.
Wow.
I think
I don't want to give anything away. It sounds weird to say like he didn't want her to see what he's doing down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
without being too spoily, let's get into like some more kind of sequences that we liked.
I'll say that I really liked the beginning scene, like the opening, not opening, but like the scene that you see in the trailer. I thought that, you know, I'd kind of roll my eyes and be like, all right, can we get past it? And I was really, really impressed with how intense and overwhelming that was, even when
Yeah.
I think because I thought I knew what to expect.
Right.
And then when it happened, I was like, oh, yeah, we're in this now.
You just because it subverts your expectations because you don't expect that the pivotal scene from the trailer is going to end with a main character dying in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But I think if that little kid had lived and we spent the next like hour, 20 minutes watching him like almost fuck up like every 5 minutes, like I would have thrown up by like the 45 minutes.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the daughter pressing her luck was intense
Yeah.
enough for me. So I'm like, it was.
The kid actors in this movie are all fantastic. They're all great.
I thought they were great.
I mean, Joe said nasty things about them, which
Well,
I won't let him
I
forget.
mean-
but-
They're,
I also
they're
feel like-
obnoxious in the way that kids that age are obnoxious. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also want to talk about how that the daughter Millicent is actually deaf in real life, and how John Krasinski really wanted there to be a deaf actor, and how she had a lot of influence over the script. Like there's been a couple of interviews where she had him change things that they said to each other because that's not how she herself would have had an argument with her dad, and that like the way they have a really big argument kind of like I guess halfway through the film, and they were very, very specific on making that authentic. So I thought
Yeah,
that
like
was
the
really
word,
interesting.
yeah, the word choice, right? Like the way that you
Yeah.
speak necessarily
Well,
in
yeah, and
ASL
like
is going to be
like
different.
the hand motions and everything to emphasize what she was feeling. So I really, really liked that.
Yeah,
I
she
think
was
that
great.
really-
Like I don't think that role would have been nearly as believable if they had actually just
Oh, yeah.
found a young actress to play.
And from what you're talking about, how like Krasinski with the word choices and things like that, that she helped with the script and stuff. To me, that really embodies like the big argument she was having with her dad, and she just kept over like wearing her hearing aid and stuff, and she was
Yeah.
just like, stop, because she didn't have the words to carry on this argument and try and get him to to trail off or change his mind or something like that. She's just like, stop, we're not talking about it.
That scene was like brutal to watch.
Yeah,
like
it
it was like
was-
heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I actually this is actually a pretty schmaltzy scene in some ways, but I liked the sequence where they go to the waterfall, the father and the son.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
you know,
like,
and
great.
that's about
Yeah.
40 minutes in, and that is like one of the only scenes where there's prolonged characters talking, and it's great because it's just like it's jarring
not-
or jolting to suddenly hear people talking.
Well, and
Uh,
they're not talking about anything really material. Like it's not they're not using that talking to explain what's going on in the film.
It's just
Yeah,
emotion.
it's not an
it's just an
info dump.
emotionally
Yeah.
cathartic scene for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty deep conversation. Like they're pretty much talking about how the son thinks John Krasinski doesn't love the daughter anymore. Like it was,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it was pretty rough. I mean, I thought we've talked about it already. Like that scene where Emily Blunt finally starts going through childbirth, and there's the, stuff that like Oscar worthy. Like she was amazing during that whole
Yeah.
scene. Like
Yeah.
it was unreal, and like hands down like the most tense scene of like the entire movie.
The,
I was kind of sitting up a little bit in my seat, like I was
Yeah.
just I couldn't deal with it.
The home
Oh,
It's
the,
really
the
rough.
Home
And
Alone the Home Alone nail gag
Oh,
was
Oh
like
yes.
my
was like
God.
one of the
Like,
fucking worst things I've ever seen.
That's exactly
Yeah.
where I was going.
because
And
they
her-
pull that
her
out
foot
like
back out.
20 minutes into the movie, and then it is literally sticking in your head for the rest. And even like after you kind of get where that's going, still I'm like,
Still, yeah.
did she tell these other people that nail's
Right.
there? Like, is this
I was
gonna
like,
happen?
Yeah.
I saw it with my mom, and she was like, "Well, how is she gonna say something?" I was like, "Put books on it, or like I don't know, something."
That's like just
Well, and
I mean, it's just a great it's a great kind of classic Hitchcockian thing, right? Like you put the
Mhm.
bomb,
Yeah.
you show the audience the bomb under the table, and then because of the language of film, your brain just immediately knows like, oh, someone's gonna step on that shit later.
Oh.
And so
Oh,
and
yeah.
then yeah, like it's like 20 minutes later when it finally kind of pays off.
And when
Like
it does,
Joe's-
like it's still just as awful.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because
But
it's
like
worse
Joe was
than you
saying-
anticipated, even though you know.
Like Joe was saying though, even know that everything is happening, then later on, like when the kids are going down in the basement and stuff like that, I'm screaming in my head, "Watch out for the step!"
Oh my God, it was awful.
Everybody,
For
there was
me,
there was a collective like, oh god,
Yep,
in my theater.
Yeah, mine too.
For me, all the scenes are pretty great, and I'll change it up a little bit. One of the things I really was impressed with, and like John said, when they had this scene at the waterfall and they didn't use it for an info dump to tell us everything was going on, they did a really great job of doling out information of what was going on in this world in the background.
Yeah.
So, like, and you get the scenes down in the basement, and you can see where John Krasinski's been doing some research on everything that's going on and doing his own research and kind of looking into things. You see some newspaper clippings when they're in the city at the beginning of the movie and things. And I
I-
thought that was really well without spoiling the whole thing.
I do have to say, if I could change one thing in this movie, it would be his dumbass notes on his whiteboard, where it's literally like
Weakness.
it's like weakness question mark armor.
What is its weakness? Like he's writing out like full sentences.
It's really
Yeah.
silly. It's like it's the info dumpiest thing that happens in this movie. And sure, like yeah, it's a background piece, but they draw attention to it, and it's just written in the corniest. Like you would never write a note to yourself in that fashion. It's just silly.
Yeah. I could see Jim Halpert doing that.
Sure, I could see Dwight Schrute doing that. Yes. But yeah, no, like,
mean-
it just made me laugh, and they kept going. They kept showing it. Literally, it's prominent, like in the finale, and I'm like, oh my god, this stupid ass whiteboard.
Well, despite that whiteboard out there, though, and as corny as that's written, even once we finally do get hints to what's going on with weakness-wise and whatnot, I was still pretty surprised by it. It's like, oh, that's smart.
A lot of notes.
I mean, I appreciated that you kind of learn more about the monsters as everything's happening. Like you see the two raccoons like skittering around the farm, and one's super quiet and the other one's kind of like chittering, and then that one gets snatched up. Or like you said, when they go to the waterfall, he kind of explains like, as long as you don't have to be quiet, you just have to be more quiet than the loudest noise. And then you kind of see they have this whole setup that when Emily Blunt's character goes in to labor, that she like is supposed to flip the lights, and then they're going to shoot off these fireworks so that she can like really focus on her birth. And it's just, I thought that was laid out really well instead of them having this conversation about it.
Were those raccoons? Like, I swear to God, they look like little wallabies. And at a certain point, I'm like, are
there wallabies in upstate New York?
They were definitely raccoons, Joe.
Like, at a certain point, I thought like they might actually be in Australia.
I mean, I think they're just really fat raccoons.
They didn't have stripes.
Yeah, well, it was dark.
Sure. Yeah, I think they did.
There was no stripes.
We'll agree to
I was
disagree
going to
on
say
that.
also,
Flipped world.
when they're coming back, when John and his son are coming back from the waterfall and they see another person,
Oh,
that was a really intense, but like
Yeah, that was a great scene.
in a different way. Like that was a really terrifying moment, and it was strange because this whole time that they're scared of this monster, but that's the first time that you see that they're scared of like another human, but that there's another human alive. Like they, you see all these at night. They have this like system where they light up, the like corn meal tower or whatever, but that's the first time.
silo.
I think it's a cornmeal tower.
Yeah,
The person who grew
Listen,
up in the
it's been a long
Texas
week. It's
Chainsaw
only
Massacre
Tuesday.
house should definitely know what a silo is.
Seriously.
I know. Sorry. Well, just another check off. I'm sorry.
We'll tell your people. We'll tell your people.
The dead
well.
body house? That's where you keep your dead bodies, right?
Yes, exactly. It's purposeful. But no, I thought that scene was really impactful because the guy's wife is dead, and they have this like intense moment where they like lock eyes, and you're like, is he going to attack them, or like what's gonna happen? So
There was a certain point in this movie when I was like, if John Krasinski holds his finger up to his mouth one more time, I'm gonna burst out laughing. Because it's like it's a little much.
The weirdest way of doing that too. Like it's like a crooked finger, and he like presses it to his face. Like that's my biggest gripe with this movie is he's got a fucked up way of shushing.
I think in the middle of the movie he should have just busted out the old like zip key throw away. Like he should have done that just to like mix it up a little bit.
I feel like everything was spot on, but at some point somebody pulled him aside like Krasinski. Look, that's not how you shush something.
All
like
he really needed was a shirt that says "Shut the fuck up" so he could point to it.
Oh Lord.
Hush up, baby boy.
oh god.
Yeah, I don't honestly. There's some like I think the ending's really great. I don't really want to spoil kind of the stuff that happens in the third act because I think it's really good, and I think people should go see this. So
I agree.
cool.
Concur.
Anybody?
Not to be blunt, but
No, go home.
Just stop.
I liked it when you made that face. My computer froze.
I like that Eric is just reading like the Daily News now or something. He's just totally given up.
All right, guys. Would you recommend this, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely.
Theater
for sure.
Theater, yeah. CC,
Yes, in theaters.
Casey,
Absolutely.
John.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. Also in theaters, I think this is like it is a great kind of mature genre film that has a lot of like emotionally resonant stuff. So I think
Eric, do we need to look at your year-end list?
yes, yeah. What is my current top 3?
Annihilation, Unsane, Strangers Pray at Night, and then last week you put The Ritual and Cloverfield down at the bottom.
God. You know
and
what?
please know that when I put this in there, I'm writing it as Hush Child.
For now, put this at number 4. My instinct wants
Oh, interesting.
my instinct wants to bump The Strangers, but like I fucking really like that movie. It was like an 80s slasher sequel, and I kind of
So
wanna. I'm
the
gonna
the scorekeeping for me is I need to catch up on Unsane and Strangers. It
100
sounds like.
John,
100
John, I'm not doing yours too. All right.
No, I'm just saying like I haven't seen them.
I think you 100% should have those at some point this year on your repertoire.
Yeah, I've got to catch those two actually. The Strangers and Unsane. Is that what you said, John?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to come over some weekend, maybe? I've already got them on reserve at the library, so when they come out, you know, they'll be there.
Perf.
All right, guys. It's going to do it for A Quiet Place. Let's take a quick break and do some fan mail.
So, you want to know the story of Splatterhouse, the new horror video game for TurboGrafx 16? They say he stalks the old haunted mansion. They say he's looking for his girlfriend. They say his only weapon against the maggot-eating ghouls who took her is a 2x4. And you say you want to play this game? Splatterhouse. Only for the TurboGrafx 16 system from NEC.
Greetings, gentle folk. This is James Duval from Donnie Darko, May, and Sushi Girl, and you are listening to BloodyGoodHorror.com.
Send your emails to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or hit us up on Twitter at BGHorror with the hashtag AskBGH. And don't forget to pick up back episodes of the show at podcast.bloodygoodhorror.com.
And we are back. Breaking news. The Spooktacular did not happen this week, John. So, good news. You can catch The Lost Boys, which is on Netflix. They're doing it
This Friday. Tweet with BGH, I think is what you're looking for.
Sophie sent me an email. It does not have the day of the week in it. Sophie, killing me,
Friday.
dude.
It says she updated the Facebook event. It's Friday, I think at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Great.
I would say this has generated some of the most extensive conversation in the Slack channel, by the way. The Lost Boys in general.
Well, here's the
John
other thing.
Shelton, not a fan.
Here's the other thing.
Yeah, I was a little surprised at that.
I erroneously stated that Sophie had never seen The Lost Boys, and then
She got real upset.
Brian from North Carolina pinged her on Slack, and she was so mad. And I was like, "Yeah, I may have said something. It felt true when I said it." So
Jesus.
I really
Fake news.
I really distinctly remember having that conversation with her, which is the scariest thing.
It's like Russian interference.
So there you go.
Shelton also didn't like the Goonies.
Oh, okay.
Who is he?
That I would have a problem with. One email this week, info@bloodygoodhorror.com. This is from Barry. We're talking about pizza, and I saw him mention on Twitter that he had somehow snuck a pizza into a theater, and I was wondering how, so he wrote in. Here we go. Eric mentioned on the Unsane episode my Twitter comment of sneaking a pizza into a movie, and Shelton, Cece, and he were curious on how I did it. Well, in the small town where I grew up, the local movie theater is right next door to a Pizza Hut. So one night, my junior year of high school, my friends and I met for pizza and a movie, and I happened to get there late. Right as my pizza arrives at our table, large 2-topping, my friends told me we had to get to the movie. So I gulped down 2 slices, got a to-go box, and hurried out the door. Walking towards the theater where my car was parked, I asked myself, "Do you think you might be able to pull this off?" So stuffing the box under my shirt against my chest and fluffing my jacket up, I strutted up to the ticket counter and got into the 7 p.m. showing of Clint Eastwood's Gran Torino. And yes, I did proceed to eat the other 3/4 of the pizza during nearly sold-out movie. Kind of makes my time sneaking in 4 cans of Dr. Thunder strapped to my legs for an Evil Dead trilogy screening and my regular Foster's oil can into our local multiplex look like child's play. Cheers and keep the shows rolling, Barry.
I'm
Not
just
all,
like, how
not all
did you-
heroes wear capes, huh?
Yeah, like how did you keep it from falling out of the box or like crumbling on top of
It's
each
impressive
other?
because Pizza Hut is not a pizza like with a great constitution to it. It's very mushy and kind of amorphous, you know.
Amorphous.
This is this is Barry that we met at the 10-year.
Yeah. Well, I would say like Pizza Hut is not like a pizza you would get like upstate or in New York. Like it's not floppy. Like though
Yeah,
it's like a Domino's.
That's
Like
true.
Yeah,
I
that's
could
fair.
see that.
That's
You
fair.
can
It's
kind of
it's
pile that up.
bready. It's
It
bready.
is. It's more
There you
bready.
go.
I love Pizza Hut, dude. Like
I mean, I like Pizza Hut.
I can
Yeah.
Or I did,
appreciate.
I guess.
I like New York pizza, but like sometimes you just need Pizza Hut with some like garlic butter dipping sauce, you know?
Does Pizza Hut come with that? That's a Papa John's thing.
I was gonna
right?
say
It
that's
used
Papa
so it
J's.
used to in the 80s, and then they stopped, or maybe the early 90s, and they stopped doing it. But
I believe that's fake
I don't
news
know.
as well.
No,
so-
I
Pizza Hut
very
in the early '90s, and I
Okay.
don't remember that.
first of
Yeah.
all, f you guys. Second of all, I'm gonna Google it right now.
Yeah, please do. Right after you Google.
What are you googling?
So,
Did Pizza Hut ever sell garlic dip?
yeah. I'm gonna
All right.
put this
You-
in Sophie's never seen Lost Boys camp.
Would you like me to address the tweets while you do the research here?
Pizza Hut, creamy garlic sauce. Suck it.
Well, here's another exciting bit
Dis-
of Pizza Hut
he-
trivia for you.
Wait, hold on.
If it
Here-
has the red roof, it's a franchise. But if it has a wooden roof, no. If it's a wooden roof, it's the franchise. If it's a red roof, it's a chain.
Here's a whole Reddit thread about some guy being upset that they discontinued their butter garlic sauce.
Well, it's
Is it
odd to
you?
think that.
I don't
Yeah.
need to read that.
So there's just an
there
angry
you
guy
go.
on the internet who potentially might be wrong about some facts.
Info at
All right.
bloodygoodhorror.com is the email address. We're also on
we,
Twitter.
we're monitoring a couple Twitter hashtags here. First one, BGH Classics. This is folks who are perusing the classic archive at Bloody Good Horror, which you can get access to by becoming a patron at patreon.com. The first one comes from Jake. That's at jhar0. Joe, in rebuttal to Schnars, it's definitely not called a hoagie, you cousin fucker. It just that witty repartee.
Some of
Everyone
my
comes to Bloody
some of my favorite Joe moments is when he really goes for the jugular with Schnars about being from Philly.
Yeah, that was a good one. Episode 324.
Part of our will they, won't they sort of
Yeah.
ongoing theme.
ABCs of Death too. We have one more here from our buddy Skizbot. So Skizbot checks in. This is borderline not really a classic. Episode 450, Gerald's Game. The quote comes from Mark. It's, Alexa, I've just had a boner pill heart attack. Please send help.
Listen, if I can't remember it happening, then that's the cutoff for a classic, and that's legitimately maybe a 2-week cutoff.
Yeah, I was gonna say that it's a low bar. All right, we got actually a fair bit of Ask BGH here, so we should dive in. The first one comes to us from Thor's Hour of Thunder podcast. That's Library O Congress. Won't your plan to get the slackers in the OG BGH crew on more mean fewer Danger Girl episodes? Fuck that noise. Smash the patriarchy.
The patriarchy. Yeah, I like that.
That was good.
I like that
That's
a lot,
good.
actually. Yeah,
That's solid.
I might make a
Good
shirt.
one.
New BGH T-shirt coming at you, patrons.
Oh, there we go. Monica checks in.
We're just not even going to answer that.
Well, I mean, I think it was asked and answered, really.
Yeah.
We have Cece now. What is?
Yeah, we got that one there.
We met our quota.
Listen, I don't know. I just didn't want Eric to have to defend himself against these slanderous attacks.
Listen, I'm the one who brought the Danger Girls together. Okay, so.
Oh. So it's only Danger Girls by the patriarchy, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
No,
Boy.
excuse me. Excuse me. It's the patri.
Hey,
It's the patriarchy.
What if we have 2 women on this show? Cece, you think your little girl brain could handle it? Show?
Oh, Christ. All right.
We kid here.
Monica asks, what is the What is the craziest dare you followed through on when playing Truth or Dare?
I don't think I ever really played Truth or Dare.
One time I drank polish remover because I joked that it was Polish remover and it would make me invisible.
What?
That sounds like it could
Oh my
kill you,
God.
Joe.
Man,
Not much.
Did it
Like,
get you
like,
drunk?
a little tiny bit.
I mean,
No.
it didn't like burn your tongue
There
box.
was
Your
some
taste buds.
touches. There was
That's horrendous,
some
dude.
there was some fallout.
Did you do that before or after stealing fountain pen?
After
Get yourself
But-
jacked up to do it with a little nail polish remover?
I would huff and then go into Hanover and steal pens.
Did that lead to Q-tips in your nipples?
No, that was
They're just always there.
always part of the lore.
yeah. All right. I actually don't know that I've ever really played Truth or Dare. Like I've been around and people have like talked about playing, but I feel like it just never really came together.
I mean, the last time I played, someone dared me to tip a cow, but this was before I realized that if you don't properly tip a cow, you can break its legs. So I think that was the last time I ever played Truth or
Are you,
Dare.
wait, are you trying to tell us you killed a cow?
Yeah.
No. I was
kind of
afraid
the-
to because I knew I couldn't knock it over. And then some of the older people with us were like, well, you have to knock it, like, you have to really hit it so it, like, tips over. And I was like, oh, that's messed up. No thanks.
You know, maybe just leave cows alone.
Yeah, I know. I was like, why would I need to tip it in the first place?
True.
Sometimes you got to tip a cow.
I always thought the joke was that you're just going to run into the cow and bounce off.
Well, that's normally the joke, but still, I'm like, it's just trying to live its life. Leave it alone.
It just makes me think of Tommy Boy whenever I think of cow tipping.
No.
I now think of Cars, the movie. I don't know if you guys have seen that recently, but they
God.
go cow tipping in that. But they're
Maynard.
tractors.
Maynard's
Yeah.
Barnyard Jamboree.
Yeah.
Ride the ride.
A lot of fun. D, that's at Diana Ank, Diana NK. What would be the cause of your demise in A Quiet Place world?
I
I would just scream at one of my kids and then immediately be murdered by one.
Or
of the...
like hitting
So-
hitting my elbow like on the counter and just screaming the F word.
Yeah.
Mine would be can of baked beans.
Yeah.
Your downfall.
I talk to myself a lot, and I like to sing really loud, obnoxiously. So I know that would be my downfall.
I mean that's the other thing. Like I just run into stuff all the time. I kept thinking about this in this movie because there's crap everywhere in this house and this barn where they're living, and I'm like,
Yeah.
you know, it's
a rambling mess.
yeah.
Oh Christ! You guys have slept in a hotel room with me. I couldn't even. I would never sleep again.
I thought about that, like literally, like
You snore.
snoring, like
Yeah.
anything. Like you're fucked.
Yeah.
I don't know. How do you open a beer?
It's a little like
So-
it's a little.
He's got a shotgun the beer.
I feel like this movie a little inspired by Tremors.
Hmm.
A
Yeah.
little bit.
There was another movie that I was thinking of that we've
What's
seen
it,
even more
John?
recently. I don't know. I'll come. It'll come back to me. All
They're,
right.
aren't they remaking Tremors?
There's been
It's going to be a
talk.
series.
That's it.
Or no,
Right?
it already was a series on Sci-Fi. No, I
okay,
think
maybe that's
they're-
what I'm thinking of then.
I think they're
Huh.
movie-fying it.
Todd DePumpa, that's at Chupacabro7,
Ooh.
asks, do you put your spaghetti strainer in the dishwasher after you use it to strain pasta, or can you just rinse it off in the sink with water and put it back in the cabinet?
No, you got to put that in the dishwasher.
So
It depends.
No, it doesn't. CC.
I
No,
I will
it doesn't.
argue.
I would never put it in the dishwasher, but I do clean it with soap.
You
Yeah. Well,
fucking. Well, do you have a dishwasher in your?
Yeah. We do.
No, that's not a dickhead, but like that's
Yeah,
I
a lot
I
of
had
people in New
a
York don't have one.
dishwasher and yeah. But whatever, you're both backwoods fucks.
well,
so.
and also if you make gluten-free pasta, that stuff is super, super like sticky afterwards. So I would think that needs to be like fully washed.
So
I give it a good scrub with the soap and,
I can't
But-
find this remake I was thinking about, but there have been 6 Gremlins
Oh, we're-
movies.
We're back to this.
Yep, and now the latest one just came out or is about to come out in 2018. So they star Michael Gross, who you may know from TV's God, what was that sitcom with Jesus
Family
Christ.
Ties?
Yes, thank you. And Jamie Kennedy is co-starring in the 6th
I
one.
have seen that actually.
It's called Tremors: A Cold Day in Hell.
I got to imagine at some point there's going to be some point to this rambling that we're going to find interesting. I can't wait for it.
I'm interested, so there you
go. Frank, that's at Frank V1313. Did anybody else feel an awkward amount? Did anyone else feel that there was an awkward amount of silence during the movie? The person next to me was eating some Twizzlers during some of the most quiet parts and stopped immediately after feeling the whole theater's judgment on her.
No, I mean, this guy next to me with the coughing and the popcorn, he was being so loud that the people to my other side were like giving him side eye across me. So it's, you know, you got to go and try to be patient when you see this movie.
Yeah, there you go. There was a lot of judginess during this, but I think appropriately so. The next question, somewhat related, Majima's eye patch. I don't know. That's at PS Trophy Hunter. Is the movie better suited for the theater experience?
I think it's like a super interesting movie, like theater watch. So I kind of feel like it is.
I think when you get a movie that is this tense, that there's sometimes a great audience experience where it's amplified because you just feel this like the air's thick because like everyone is really tensed up.
Yeah.
And I think
and then you kind of get like that relief, like when even in the moment where they're at the waterfall, I felt like everybody in the theater was like, okay, like we can breathe for like a few minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of the waterfall, I'm going to jump one ahead and we'll come back. If Lee knew the waterfall could block sound, why wouldn't they plan a space for Evelyn to give birth there? Not that it would have changed the way things went.
Well, it seems like it was kind of far away.
You're just going to hang out on the waterfall while waiting for it to happen?
So
didn't look like there's a lot of room behind it either.
Don't go chasing them.
All right. I actually had a thought at one point during this movie that why wouldn't you go live near the beach? You know, I mean, I guess the problem is like you're like hard to defend on the beach.
But what was it, like an ocean beach or was it like a lake beach? Because it wasn't clear to me. Because the lake beach would.
Oh no, sorry. I mean, like in real life, like wouldn't you try to go to where the ocean was because there's always like a level of like sound there? You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I'm not talking about in the movie. I'm talking.
Yeah,
if
I mean,
you were really to be alive in this world.
I think that there are a lot of larger questions about this world you can ask that the movie intentionally doesn't touch on, because I think it kind of smartly knows that for every one it tries to answer, it opens up 10 more questions. Like, we don't really know the state of the wider world other than that there don't seem to be a lot of people around at all.
Not to mention, if they're in upstate New York, that would take a long time making those little trails of beach sand going to the beach for the ocean.
Right.
That's true.
You need a different colored sand.
Skizbot asks, do you remember the last time you rented a movie from a video store? After aimlessly scrolling through Netflix for 30 minutes and making zero decisions on what to watch, I sometimes miss those decisive blockbuster days.
Oh, I do not miss like those arguments with the wife on like a Friday night trying to pick a goddamn movie.
Well, now though, you just have arguments in your own house, and it's like, well, I'd rather watch this, or I'd rather watch that, and then you start watching it, and the other person gets up and leaves, or it's just...
Exactly. You don't have to wear pants for these arguments, is what I'm saying.
I do know what he's saying though, because like sometimes you just get like choice paralyzed by choice, and then you don't watch shit, or you watch something you've seen 100 times, like.
Or you watch trailers for 45 minutes and then just go to bed.
Yeah.
This too is like, I feel like the video store, even if you rented a shitty movie, like you rented it.
Watch it. Yeah.
Because you're like, well, I got this movie, might as well watch it,
Yeah. Whereas like the world of Netflix, you can be like 10 minutes in and like, this is fucking garbage. Like, I'll try something else.
The last movie I rented was House, because we have a like small indie store in the city that you can rent for like literally just overnight rentals, and I thought the cover was cool, and God, that movie is crazy.
I'm telling you, the library, like we still get our movies from the library, like, and it's
that's where we got. Or no, we got I, Tonya from Redbox, I think.
Yeah. Oh, we got I, Tonya from the library. I love it. I love the library.
It's great.
This is National Library Week, guys. By the way, go out there.
There you go.
Look at you.
I support libraries. Jeremy, that's at JD Burge, Jeremy Burgess, says that
fucking
Now that Jordan Peele and John Krasinski have directed big deal horror movies, who's the next random comedy person you want to see a horror movie from?
Rob Corddry.
Audrey Plaza.
Sure.
John Lovitz.
John Lovitz.
I'd watch that.
Yeah.
John
We've already
Lovitz
seen a
is the worst.
semi-horror movie from Aubrey Plaza.
What?
Well, did she direct it?
Yeah,
What
wasn't
about
she in
Beth?
some zombie thing?
Oh
Yes.
yeah, I thought
Okay.
you were gonna say Ingrid Goes
Hot
West,
garbage.
and I thought that was going to be a horror movie, and it definitely
Oh.
was not.
Yeah.
Wait, is that no good? Should I not watch it?
No, it's
Ah,
awful.
It's awful. It's not really good.
I think my
Whoa,
wife.
awful.
I think my wife liked
Yeah.
it.
I mean, it's not okay. I didn't like it, and we finished it, but it's just you can't go in expecting it to be what you thought it was going to be.
No,
Just
it's-
take the ride.
Yeah.
It's pretty much if half of Brooklyn turned into zombies and you had to fucking live in a house with them. Like that's I Love Beth.
You
I
and
actually
Cece
like
are
the Rob
Joe-
Corddry recommendation.
Joe-
I would
Yeah.
probably second that.
Thank you. I love Rob Corddry. I would like him to do anything. You and Cece are talking about different movies, Joe.
Yeah.
Are we? What do? Am
Totally.
What do you?
I was talking about Ingrid Goes West.
Oh,
Which
Joe's
Joe
just like talking
hasn't
about some
seen.
other movie.
I would like to point out, Joe, if I did that, you would make fun of me for not paying attention, but I won't do that.
To be fair,
Rightfully
Joe's talking about the movie I was talking about. So.
Yeah.
yeah.
So I was the one talking about a different movie.
Fair.
So-
What
Cece's-
what other movie are you guys talking about?
Oh my
then?
I
God.
Love Beth. Or
Yeah.
no, Life After Beth.
Life
Is that-
Yeah,
After
Life
Beth.
After Beth.
Yeah.
That's the one.
All right,
That
let's
movie's
move,
fucking garbage.
Let's move on.
All right. One more, and Casey sent you guys a link to this so you can respond. So Monica asks, how does my friend Andy rate on the Schnars scale?
Pretty good. I'd say a 6 or 7.
He does have a V-neck on.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. There you go.
So he's
I feel like,
he's
and I don't mean this as any insult to Andy, but you're a little more svelte. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like you're in better shape than Andy. And
You
that's,
really
that's
have to. You've got to have like
Listen, Andy
the.
seems like a lovely person. So.
You've
No,
got-
I'm sure he's a great guy. Just you can stand to lose a few pounds.
You've got to have like the. Yeah, you've got to have like the kind of
Jesus.
sinewy runner's body of like a Norseman who only eats fish.
I don't know Andy, but I assume he has a white van. That's what I'm saying. Sure, he's
Oh, Christ.
Perfectly nice, but I'm sure he's also kidnapped.
Monica's regretting her decision now to send this question. in.
Well, she knew what she was getting.
That's true. She's
Yeah,
listened to
yeah.
the show for a long time.
There you go. All right, that's all we got.
Great. Tweet with BGH. Friday, Joe? Sound right?
Yeah, I did.
Lost
to it.
Boys. Check it out. Watch with the crew. Tweet about it on the Twitter there. Do we know what we're doing next week?
No,
Probably not.
We did not
So,
discuss.
so it's a video pick.
I.
So is that a yes?
Do we have to
Yeah,
go
I
to
guess
Blockbuster?
we haven't discussed it. We're gonna have to discuss
Oh,
this.
I
after
would
the show.
love.
Christ,
I would.
John, do you have the kids this weekend, or is this the?
Oh wait, guys, hold on a second. Truth or Dare comes out this weekend.
Yeah, we're not going to see Truth or Dare.
No.
Thank God.
Under the
Oh,
new
wow.
under the new Bloody Good Horror regime, that is going to be moved to the on DVD list.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's fair.
That movie is why we made this rule.
Which,
Yes.
which, by the way, can someone please start a watch on DVD list?
Yeah, we'll keep track. We'll keep track.
Oh yeah, I feel like we already have that going somewhere. We've got
We
the
do.
Winchester.
But I think we should keep it set. Like, I think we still need a hopper for like here's stuff that has buzz and people are recommending, and then it's strictly like this was in the theater and now it's on DVD because those won't always be the same thing.
We can. Well, don't worry. We can manage tracking 2 separate lists there.
Thank you.
I
That's all I want.
don't think we can.
That's all I want in life, John.
Christ.
All right, guys.
Yeah, so we're open.
A Quiet Place. That's our review. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll talk to you next week.
See you.
Bye.
Okay, bye everybody. Goodbye now.
Bye-bye.